I'd like to have a motion to change a couple things if we may.
Hold on. I don't have to speak. It's okay.
And here's what I'd like to do. We had a special meeting scheduled at 5:30. And we thought we might be done with that, but I wasn't expecting the huge gallery that we had and the public comment that we had. So it took us a little bit longer, but I think we're past that now. So I'd like to have a motion to postpone our regular meeting and go ahead and hear our special meeting, which has to do with the electric and C&D. And I'll have Gary kind of present the special meeting itself so we know what's going on. But I'd like to have a motion again, like I said, to postpone our regular meeting until such time we can have our special meetings. And then we want to reconvene our regular meeting after that.
Are we gonna come back to do the regular tonight, you mean, or?
I would like to make a motion that we
Say so moved.
so moved.
Second.
We have a motion in the second. Doris.
Honorable Hassan,
Aye.
Honorable Destiny Westfall,
Aye.
Honorable Walker, Honorable Matt Forster,
Aye.
Honorable Ingo Hoffner.
And the reason for this, folks, is we have some guests here that are probably going to need to travel and do some other things. So we want to be able to move on the fly a little bit. Okay. So Mr. Whitehead, go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, members of the commission, members of the community. Just before I came on, the city had commissioned E&D Electrical to do a grid study coming out of the potential conversation for sale of our infrastructure. You decided not to do so, and we commissioned this study. So the study went through all the process of looking at our asset, providing a lot of information. When they were complete with the study, they came forth and presented that to you in a commission meeting. At that time, we agreed that we would reconvene a public hearing. And I would add to you, Mayor, we're going to try to do this next month. We'll do a similar in the evening where we're going to talk about the rate study. It's okay. Are we getting online there?
Yeah, we're trying to.
So what we're going to do today, the intention of the 5:30 public hearing today was then to have T&D, our electrical consultants come back and have the opportunity to spend a little more time than the 10 minutes they had at the commission meeting. So they could kind of, again, present the highlights of the study. And then you could ask questions on the grid, and then the public would have an opportunity to ask some questions and kind of bring this full circle as to where we're at with our grid. Coming off of that, what I'll tell you is we've begun to do work with inside this plan through the infrastructure conference this year. We found a grant called a resiliency grant. They have a pot of money to improve grids. What they're looking for is to make sure that communities have, again, resiliency. What do we have in backup? So in this plan, one of our weaknesses is that our transformer, our substation, it's the only substation we have. And if it was to go down to one transformer, we would be really in trouble in the summer. We wouldn't really be able to run the entire city. So we have submitted a grant to renovate our substation, to upgrade it, to add a new transformer. The vision would be we would install a new transformer there, and then we would take the old transformer, have it rebuilt, and then create another substation inside the grid. So that's the dream, that's the vision. The resiliency grant requires that we have a public hearing, that we have two of them. So what we'd like to do is you're going to hear from T&D. This is your time to ask questions about the grid, and then ultimately then our consultants and our grant writer will come up, talk a little bit about the resiliency grant, and this will be kind of the first checkbox on that grant process. So with that, Mayor, I would allow you go ahead and drive, and then T&D will come up, and then the public can ask questions, and you guys can ask questions about the grid and the grid study.
Okay, thank you. Well, it is now 6:14 p.m. and I open a public meeting for the presentation for T&D. And if you would come up to the microphone and fire away. Thank you.
Well, we good to go?
We'll go ahead and get started. First of all, thank you all for the flexibility in rearranging schedule tonight. We're extremely thankful for the opportunity to have this discussion tonight. My name is Robert Perea, manager of the planning division at T&D Services. We are an
Can you move that mic a little closer to your mouth, please? So
Yes, sir.
make sure everybody can hear.
Is that better? We are an engineering consultant firm out of Albuquerque. Our task was thank you for the introduction. That helps us get started. Our task was to do a comprehensive review, comprehensive study of the distribution grid, and we'll be sharing those results with you this evening. We appreciate the opportunity. We're always excited to talk about the work we've done. Again, tonight we're going to talk about findings. We're going to talk about, certainly discuss some of the details of the results. We want to talk about next steps. And the really important part for us tonight is to make sure that questions and concerns are brought up. We want to make sure that any questions or concerns that anybody has, that we address those tonight. As T&D performed the study, it really was a collaborative effort. It was an all hands on deck process and project, so we could make sure that the study was completed. We've got a few of those folks with us today that were part of the study. They're joining us virtually. We've got Kenny Adams, our stations division manager. We've got Jared Contreras, project manager at T&D. We also have Steve Brooks. He is the co-project lead. And when we're ready, I think we're ready to start our presentation. Willie Lopez will take over. He is the other co-project lead, and we're excited to be here. We appreciate y'all having us and look forward to all questions. And thanks for having us, and we appreciate everybody being here.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Am I? Yeah. No. And does Willie have the presentation on his side? Could he join the meeting and then share his screen?
If anybody's watching out there and on YouTube, we're in the process of trying to load the program right now, so please bear with us.
We just jump back.
And now, can I make a motion? So moved. To go back to our regular agenda.
All right.
All right.
Good afternoon,
Good afternoon,
everybody.
everybody.
Good afternoon, everybody.
All right.
Yeah, my name is Willie Lopez. I'm with T&D Services, and I was the lead engineer throughout the assessment study of Tier C electrical distribution system.
Okay.
I have a couple slideshows to present to you guys. I'm going to start with a quick introductory on how electricity and distribution systems work. So how it all works, we are going to start there. So electricity explained. So there's three main components when we talk about electricity. There's volt, amps, and resistance. And I really like this cartoon here because it really gives you a conceptual and intuitive demonstration of how it all works. So volt is like the pressure trying to push the amps through the wire, and the resistance is which is resisting the flow. A good analogy for electrical current that's intuitive to us is water flow. You can think of these two systems analogous to each other, where pressure is equal to voltage, so the pressure from the water tank or a pump is the same as the voltage provided by a generator or battery. Your flow rate inside of a water pipe would be equal to the current. Sorry, guys. The flow rate of the water would be equal to the current that flows through the wire. And the pipe size itself would be analogous to the resistance that the wire provides, or any load that is on the electrical system. There's also a concept where I want to describe that's electric power versus energy. So power, which is measured in watts or kilowatts, it's like the flow rate of the water. So when we talk about current, it's almost the same as the power flowing. Energy itself is measured in watt hours or kilowatt hours, and that's like the amount of water that ends up in the bucket. So that would be the energy versus power. Here is a water distribution system, which I think is a lot more intuitive to us as humans than an electrical system. But if you compare them, then you can see that they work very similarly. And as you can imagine, all these houses that you see there would be like their own individual bucket. And as those are trying to fill up their bucket, the pressure in that pipe would then start to drop. And that would be analogous to our voltage. So as load on our system, which is like everybody trying to fill up their buckets, you could see voltage drop due to that. The same way you would see everyone trying to fill up their water bucket, pressure start to drop in the line. Now, here is a diagram of generation to customer. Here in red is the generation station that is the power is generated, well, energy, and then it's stepped up through a transformer to a higher voltage, sent on a transmission line, then it reaches your a substation, which you guys have one substation here in this electrical distribution system. So from that substation, the electricity voltage is now stepped down, and then that would feed your city and town. Which at where it says secondary customer, it has a little pole there, and on that pole you see
a little cylindrical object. That cylindrical object would also be a transformer that steps the voltage down even more to what you see there listed as 120 volts, which some of us might be more familiar with, which we would have in our homes. So that's just a quick introductory to just give everybody a general understanding, and hopefully that helps with conceptual knowledge and intuitive knowledge and some of the jargon that we might be using that might not be common to everybody. So now I'll lead into the City of Truth or Consequence Asset Management Plan, which was performed by T&D Services. The scope of the assessment started with a field inventory, which consisted of crews coming out and collecting field data, inputting that into a GIS system. That GIS system basically is a working model in the computer inventory model of your entire distribution system, from the wire type, pole, framing on the pole, pretty much every piece that is on your system. From that GIS system, we are able to create an electrical model that would be in a separate software. That electrical model has electrical mathematical computing data capabilities that allow us to run analysis for certain types of studies that we would perform based on any requirements for load, new load, solar, coordination studies of that sort. Performance assessment, after the model was created, a performance assessment was done by studying different conditions on your system. The two main conditions are the normal conditions and an outage condition, and that would consist of a feeder or a transformer being taken out and being picked up by another feeder or another transformer. And that was studied through the year 2045, which was 20-year span from when we started the study. A quick recap on the recommendations: improve performance, improve operation, and improve reliability. Those are the main goals of our recommendations. Here's a quick summary of our recommendations. We broke it down into three categories: short-term, mid-term, and long-term, based on priority and feasibility. Short-term would consist of substation maintenance. T&D documented these items, and then we'd also want to update the feeder relay settings. Mid-term recommendations would be updating the feeder breakers, relays, and feeder getaway conductor. This would improve metering, and this will increase the ability to balance load between feeder phases, and this will also increase your ability to troubleshoot faults, load balancing between feeders phases. And this the improvements on the substation will improve the substation reliability in general. Long-term recommendations would be assessing adding a new substation. This will create resiliency of the system overall and reliability of the system overall. If you're being that you only have one substation, if that substation were to ever go out, you would have another substation to back it up. So the study methodology, the system model developed from field inventory. And that system model, we used a software called MillSoft Windmill, which is an electrical analysis software. This was used to perform what we call load flow studies or voltage drop studies to be able to basically model load flowing through your system and being able to pinpoint voltage drops, overloads, and current flow through any point in your system. So basically, the windmill model, we would like to almost call it a virtual twin of your system. The feeder loads modeled by T&D on the software, the loading was based on transmission meter data. And when we say that, after the transmission, you hit your transformers, which step down the voltage. From the transformers, it breaks out into each feeder. There's 6 feeders total, 3 on each transformer. We do not have feeder metered data to be able to know exactly how much load is on each feeder. So we only had transmission data, which then we used to reference the model's connected transformer KVA and allocated the load according to that. It basically takes the total amount of load and then creates a ratio based on the total amount of load and the size of each transformer and allocates a small amount of that load based on that ratio. The studies were done for what we call N-0 and N-1 conditions. N-0 basically means normal operating conditions. N-1 means that there is an outage, whether it be a feeder outage or a transformer outage. The load growth that we used for this study was 1.5% annual growth rate. This was determined from pulling and analyzing historical data, finding the average load growth there, and then putting a buffer on top of that to ensure that it's over-engineered to some capacity for any extra load growth that may happen. So that completes that portion of the presentation. So that was our analysis approach and our data collection. Here's a quick overview of the TRC electrical system. We have this map color coordinated based on each feeder, and the names of the feeders are displayed in that color as well. And then you could see in the white and black notation there is the Hot Springs substation. At that substation is the source of all these feeders. So these feeders, that you could think of the substation as the main trunk of your system, and everything branches out from there. And there's 6 main branches, which you see: South Broadway, Williamsburg, Cedar, Downtown, Ash, and Riverside. This here is a table describing substation and feeder loads, and gives it breaks it down in terms of KVA and which is demand, and its rated percentage at the moment. So the percent rating you see there is the feeder rating, and as you can see from and these are all peak loads, by the way. So this is when your system is peaked, maxed out at its most demand, when the most people are trying to fill those buckets. This is the most you guys will see at a given time here for each year for 2025, and then years after that are projected. So, and then the percent rating there tells you, based on that load, what the feeder can handle. So for instance, the Ash feeder in 2025, it's only at 17% of that feeder rating. So as you move down, you can see as we get to 2024, that feeder rating is still in good shape. You could see some other feeders have some heavier ratings there. But to know that for sure, that's where the metering with the new feeder relays, that would give us all that intel. That would show exactly how much those feeders are using. This chart here is showing the min and max voltage for normal operating conditions. Actually, this is just the min voltage for the normal operating conditions, excuse me. Anything that's highlighted in red shows that it's out of normal operating conditions band. So as you can see, there are some voltages that go out of normal operating conditions band, starting in 2040 on South Broadway, and then in 2045 on Williamsburg and South Broadway. And the voltage is kind of like the pressure of the system. Here's a nice little map kind of highlighting where those voltage ranges that are out of band are seen. So everything highlighted in red is where those under voltage violations were found in the system. Most of these voltage violations are due to phase imbalancing, not inadequate conductor ratings or any type of rating on the system. Being able to balance the load on phases can help spread that load to different phases to help pick up that effort there. So there's 3 phases on a distribution system, A, B, and C. And being able to balance those phases is key to keeping all the voltages balanced as well. And when the voltages are balanced, it tends to bring them in band. If they're not in balance, you could see some higher voltage and then some lower. So this is a chart. These charts here are histogram charts showing projected N1 transformer loads in relative to the transformer rating. And what the N1 transformer is describing is a loss of a transformer. So when one transformer has to pick up the other. So that's basically all 6 feeders of your system would be supplied by one transformer. And you would want to size that transformer to be able to handle that condition in case of any emergency outage of that sort. And what we're seeing here is by 2030, the projected substation peak load will exceed the capacity of a single 14 MVA transformer. As demand increases, both the duration and the amount of potential load curtailment rise. So basically that's saying as we get further on, you would have to then curtail some of the load back to make sure that that transformer can handle the load. And just a real quick summary on the chart too, that dotted line is where it shows the limit of the transformer, and the purple histogram is the load. And the reason it's so small at the peak load is because you don't see peak load for a long period of time. So our N1 analysis, loss of feeders. So there's no near-term issues. We kind of pointed that out earlier with our voltage. Starting in 2040, the South Broadway / Williamsburg ties, C phase is seen in their voltage at the end of its line. By 2045, South Broadway / Williamsburg's tie overloads the conductor, near the feeder getaway. And I'll get into the feeder getaway here shortly as well, if there's any questions on that. So like I had mentioned earlier, phase balancing is showing to mitigate that issue. Other than the overload itself, but some of the planned upgrades are to upgrade that feeder conductor coming out of the feeder getaway. This here is another map showing some of that under voltage in N1, N-1 analysis, as well as showing some of the overloaded conductor, which the overloaded conductor is shown and highlighted in green, and the under voltage violations are highlighted in red. There was also a protection analysis portion to this study. Similar to a breaker that you would have in your house, the distribution system has its own breakers and fuses, which when seeing an overcurrent will open the breaker or cause a fuse to melt. And things that are in protective devices that are in line with each other, you want to coordinate with the furthest one down line melting or opening before the furthest one up line. So that way the least amount of customers see an outage opposed to the furthest upstream device opening and the whole system being taken out. Coordination analysis indicates possible miscoordination between the feeder relays and upline bus protection. If the bus protection ground overcurrent settings are set too quick, a low current fault may result in miscoordination. Miscoordination between the feeder relay and the bus protection result in a much larger outage than necessary due to it isolating the other two unaffected feeders. So what that is essentially describing is an entire transformer getting taken out from it seeing overcurrent before a device downstream from it, where just one feeder can open up and only one feeder being taken out, where if those aren't coordinated properly, a whole transformer can be taken out. These charts here are a little bit more in the weeds than necessary, but this just gives you an idea of how we coordinate these devices. So this slide is, we're going to get into some of the maintenance and recommendations that we have, starting with substation maintenance. There are a few checklist pieces that some fresh eyes caught, some maintenance items in the substation to fix. So an example is some small stuff that is just happens through wear and tear and needs to be maintenance. Some of the substation refresh is some bigger items that are critical to the system operation and extending the life of the substation. So we're going to start by talking about replacing aging high voltage switches and insulators. The 115 kilovolt switches, fuse disconnect assemblies, and cap and pin bus port insulators are approaching their near end of life. New equipment should be installed to replace these. Spare parts for the old G switches are scarce and failure would be hard to fix. A lot of these parts have long lead times and aren't super readily available. So if there was a failure of any of these components, it could be catastrophic. And this is the main tie to the transmission system, which if those pieces fail, that is the main source of power that it's connected to. feeder relay replacement. I had touched on this a little bit earlier in the presentation. The feeder relay is the device that reads the currents running through the feeder source point. The feeder relay, newer feeder relays would enable more protection schemes. They would be ready for reverse power flow from NEDR, which is distributed energy resources, which consists of any type of generation that would be on your system. That would you could think of as solar, wind, diesel, other types of generation output. And one of the big things is it would improve metering and communications. So you can have direct communication to these devices from the utilities hub and be able to see all these readings live and be able to record this data. And a lot of the memory storage is large, so you could have lots of historical data that would meter it at least every 15 minutes and can even go at shorter intervals depending on the storage capacity for that certain interval reading. And that can help with analyzing faults and troubleshooting faults, especially if you don't necessarily know where they're coming from. There is some feeder cable replacement recommendations. The feeder cables are likely the same vintage as the station components. Cities should plan for the replacement during scheduled maintenance rather than wait for failure. These have already been in the talks. Modern cables benefit from significant improvements in manufacturing. And this is in terms of degradation and resilience. So now this is showing, I'm going to get into just a few pictures of the substation so that way you can see the substation that serves this system and a light description on it here. The big gray devices that you see there are the two transformers. And the steel structures that you see behind it are the structures that house the transmission switches. Where your transmission line comes into your transformer, the switches are hanged up on those steel structures that are sitting behind the transformers. Here's a side profile of the steel structure where you could see the transmission on the picture on the left. You can see the transmission line to the right side and the steel structure that houses the switches on the left of the transmission line. And then below it, you can see the transformers. And the image to the right, that shows a zoomed in image of the actual switches themselves, which also has a fuse, so it acts as a fuse and a switch. This image here is this is an image that I want to try to describe the feeder breakout cables that we were mentioning that need to replace. So from the substation, after the transformer, it breaks out into each feeder. And then from each feeder in the substation, that is then taken underground with underground cable. And so you could kind of see this in this picture here, because you see the substation on the left, and then you see these two poles that look like twins of each other on the right-hand side there. And if you look closely, you see some conduit cable coming out of the ground, going up those poles. That's the underground cable that traveled from the substation under the street and up the poles there. So that's what feeds some of these feeders. So I think that's two feeder feeds that you're seeing there. I don't know exactly what feeders they are, but that would be 2 feeder feeds that we're looking at there that came underground, under the street, up those poles, and then break out to feed a feeder. So that concludes the presentation. We want to open it up for any questions.
Thank you. Question? Yep. Were you here for the presentation earlier? Obviously you were.
No, sir, no,
Oh, I
sir.
was gonna say, so we're projecting a 1.5% growth annually. The presentation we had earlier, exponentially blew that out of the water, with a lot of other visitation, a lot of other impact on our community. I'm thinking that the dates that, our system becomes, challenging, you had 2030, 2045, they may have to be moved up. I don't know. The truth is somewhere in between. But there seems to be a huge economic impact on our horizon, that affect our system. So what are the most essential things that we have to jump on first?
So the essential things would be the feeder breakout cables.
Right.
And the switches. Those are dire things that you could update sooner than building a substation, because a substation would help, exponentially in that type of scenario.
Right.
But that takes a lot of planning, time, allocating land, all that stuff. It could be a stretch of years, right? So the main priorities for this would be the feeder breakout cables, the transmission tie switches, and the feeder relays. Those are the main concerns that we have at this moment. I don't know. It would be good we do have the working GIS system model of your system and the working electric model of your system. So if there's any data that comes in to support that exponential load growth, there's what we call load studies, knowing when load is going to come onto your system. Since you guys have a model that's already built, we could perform what we call a system impact study, where we would incorporate those loads onto the system and see the impact that it would have on the system.
So as we get more information, we can project the growth a little bit better, then we can put that in your model.
Totally,
And
yeah.
tell us where we need to be and how to move up and what we need to do.
Yes, sir. And essentially, this study consisted of a lot because of the data collection, having the crews having to come out here and get every single piece, make sure and verify right, and input it into the system, make sure the data was logged correctly and all in order. But now that that is implemented, these load flow studies, which I had mentioned that we use the software, essentially if the system is up to date, those are as fast as a click of a button, right? And
Right.
of course, there is some modeling work that has to be done with the new loads that are getting put in and setting the parameters that we would want to set. But that's a much quicker, much faster process for seeing that impact. That can be done in a very short time period once the data is known.
Okay. Manager Whitehead, what's the security of our electric department? If we have some cash on hand, if we had to make some immediate changes, we could. I know that we're going to approach the Colonias for a $12 million project, which we approved last time, in funding, which would take care of a lot of this stuff if we get any of that funding. But aside from that, and not being able to bank on that, we're sitting pretty strong with the electric department funds, are we not?
Mayor, members of the commission and the public, yes, the electrical funds seem to be pretty healthy. We're probably in excess of 4 million right now. It's a little higher on the books. We have some transfers to do, but we're in excess of 4 million there. We're also fulfilling the obligations under the current ordinances, which require that we set aside system-wide money. So we have about $1.5 million in a separate fund. So for sure, we have that. We're doing well. And I think what I want to have Bo in a moment kind of come up
Yeah.
and talk a little bit about what we've already started doing this year at the substation to prepare that. So again, Bo and I have visited since this study. Again, we feel financially we are, we're fairly safe in this particular situation, right? If the transformer went out, I think it's a couple of $1 million. The problem isn't paying for it; it's the lead time to get it is really probably as much a problem for us as the dollars, right? But
And do we want to build that redundancy in fairly soon, or how do we deal with it?
well, we think that's the dream. And so again, to be fair, right, we think that the smart attack is to fix the substation, right? To deal with all the components that have been talked about here, get our substation as reliable as we possibly can. And then know the second piece of that is to then build another substation so that you could, share the load, balance the load. Again, not trying to understand, I'm just beginning to come up to my skills on it, but Bo's done a good job kind of explaining to me how our system works. And so that would be there. So.
And that would also depend on the data that you were talking about earlier on how big that load growth is.
Not sure we're going to have a good handle on that for another year or so, but some people are really up there as far as the impact we could have on our communities. I'm hoping it's more slow and controlled and sustained growth. We'll have to make some decisions in that regard, but we'll have to be ready for it. And here's our opportunity. Once we stop robbing the electric department to fund our other departments, it took care of itself, didn't it?
It kind of balanced. It looks like it did.
So we have an opportunity here to get ahead of it. We may have missed an opportunity with our water systems in the past, but we're not going to miss this opportunity.
Another thing that possibly could help a little bit is getting the solar back online.
Yeah.
That reduces some of the current flow that you see through the substation because that provides generation on the other end of the distribution system.
It's back online.
Okay.
Okay, and so that's 1 megawatt where you see some feeders have a peak load of 1.5 to 2.3 megawatts, which is a megawatt is covering almost all of some feeders, but the 1%, the 1.5% growth, I don't want to say for certain, but it should cover some of the growth that you were talking about. I don't know what data they have to back that up, but we have a good grasp on that, and that's actually a pretty significant buffer from historical load growth, which I know might be the growth that you're seeing is unprecedented to what we had, but we buffered it for that reason.
Okay, that's encouraging.
Mm-hmm.
Bo could come up and kind of talk a little bit about.
Usually if we could.
Where do we go from here? What is the next set of plans?
You want to go over that? Good. Yeah.
For new Mayor Pro Tem.
Afternoon. Good evening.
Yeah, right now I have Asplund, our engineers working on our substation right now. They're testing our north and south transformer. They're replacing some relays on the high side of the transformers. Kenny from T&D came out yesterday. We went out for a ride looking at, we have possible 2, maybe 1 more place to put another substation. We went out and looked at the north end of the golf course. There we have some property, city owns some property there. On the back side of the National Guard Armory is another spot that we could put a substation. And then I was talking with Asplund today. They were talking about just going ahead and putting another 3rd transformer right next to the 2 that we have there too. So we need to kind of feel out get it engineered to see what is gonna be the best for us. I think our biggest circuit that we need to worry about right now is probably gonna be Cedar Circuit, especially with the Loves coming online. And then more growth over there by Loves. So that's gonna be something that we're gonna have to look we're gonna have to look at it pretty soon. So, but other than that,
The feeder relays didn't.
is Kenny on?
Kenny.
Kenny, did you want to talk about our feeder relays?
Okay.
Going looking through the station. You able to hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, good start over.
Okay, very good. Great. Yeah, some upgrades on the relays would be good. As Willie said, just to be able to get the communications and the data out of those relays in order to know how things are doing and plan for growth accordingly on what's available there. The other station options are really the thing that I have in mind. And the idea would be to build a redundant substation somewhere else in town, but yet be able to interconnect the two stations so that if either one was to go down for a failure or maintenance or something like that, that the rest of the town can be carried by the one unit. And that was what we were really looking at the various locations to see. The concern with adding a third unit there would just be that you now have all those eggs in that one basket still. And it just makes it that much harder to kind of work around. Whereas if you spread that out across town, then you take advantage of some benefits of the separation that would be involved there. All the recommendations we've discussed at great length with Bo and others, and I know they are working towards those, and that will definitely help in the short term to be able to take care of some just general maintenance items and a couple of things that need to be addressed at the existing station. Some of those are real easy, some of those are a little more complicated, like the switches that we're talking about. Most of that glass up there is very dated. Pin and socket type insulators and the very old GE mechanisms that, again, I just don't think we can find parts for readily if one were to fail and need something. But we've got some ways that we could utilize some of the existing infrastructure that is there as far as the foundations and a new steel structure, a new switch, and be able to clean up a bunch of that. One of the other concerns that I have is from the safety and hazard perspective of just the catwalks that are up there, and Willie showed that in some of the pictures. Climbing bolts and things like that on the structures, they are behind a fenced area. Yeah, thank you. And that's great, but if you had some vandals or some gang members or something like that wanting to try to get into a structure and hang material or spray paint, whatever, and graffiti things, that might be a pretty enviable place to go. And that's my concern with having that access up there. The best plan, and that was by design originally. The catwalk was needed in order to exchange the fuses and work on the structures when it was cleared. But there's no need for that now, the way things are set up with the circuit switchers. So those catwalks and climbing bolts and things like that really do need to go away. And a better way of doing that would be to update that whole structure and switch. But again, a lot of details, and be happy to talk to any of the various points of those as you might need me to. But again, appreciate the opportunity to go meet with Bo yesterday and then take a look at the locations on where the new stations might be able to go to support those loads.
Thank you, Kisa. And Mayor Pro Tem, Commissioner Porchard, I would say, where do we go from here, right? Is the study's really good. I think what it should give us the confidence is that the grid's in good shape. I think they've said that in their presentation. I think they've delivered it. We have a good asset model. We know the poles. So we're going to be able to really begin to track the stuff that we can do in-house, which is, pole replacement, those kind of things that need to happen. We can do that more with a set plan, right? You're going to hear, we're going to do a little break, kind of a little a meeting, because we've applied for a grant, $2.5 million, so that we could try to get this resiliency grant, which would go right into the substation. So that's going to be our main focus, is let's fund that. Let's get that going. Part two, Bo and I have both had an opportunity to meet with Sierra Electric Co-op. So I want to be real clear here. we've talked a lot about trying to find some way in 2030 when our contract with Sierra Electric is up. But we're kind of connected to them because that main line that we're talking about flows behind the golf course. That's tri-state line. So that's why we're looking at the golf course or behind the armory, because the closer we can stay to that line, the less cost there is to build a substation, right? So again, let's be sharp. Let's find something there. Sierra Electric Co-op has already indicated that if we're going to add another transformer, they're going to have to do a line study, right? They're going to have to go prove that they have enough capability to deliver power to us. So that's going to be one set of plans that would potentially have to happen. We'll partner with Sierra Electric Co-op to do that. And they've already said, they want to continue to serve us, right? They really do pass power on to us at a reasonable cost. They get a small compensation for doing that. But, Guy has shared that with me. It's not a tremendous amount of profit Sierra Electric Co-op is making. So again, they are a partner and they do take care of some of our citizens, right? There's a part of town that's served by Sierra Electric. So we have a need to keep them going. So that's what has to happen. But if we were to go look for another supplier, they're going to have to figure out how to build a line, a distribution line to get into us to serve us. So at this point, it's really in our best interest to work with Sierra Electric, make sure we can figure that out, look at those options, but do it. That's where we would go from here, right? Substation, continue to build, continue to improve our infrastructure, do that what we can, and then find to ultimately get our next substation. Does that sound like what we're at?
Yes, sir.
Did I do okay on those items? Thank you.
Yes. Right. Thank you. Well, any questions? Any further questions?
Comment.
Yes, sir.
With the extra substation being brought in as a redundancy, how healthy are redundancies now with just the one substation? Where are we at? Like, I guess a rating, if you could, like our redundancies as a whole on the one substation, do we have things in place to help if something does go down? Do we have stuff in a lot or backlog where we can replace things on hand, or are we gonna have to buy and trust?
A lot of the stuff right there, like everybody T&D have talked about, like the upper stuff, if something insulator broke or something like that, we would have to look for it and it's going to be hard to find. So, yeah.
I thought that from the wastewater treatment plant, we're down to one clarifier. That was a redundancy and we're going to go through a whole process. If we could get ahead of this now, I think that would be really beneficial.
Like us right now, we have two transformers at the substation, right? It's like right now they just finished working on the south one. What we did was we put the whole city on the north transformer, took the south one down and everything. And then tomorrow morning, what we'll do is we'll go ahead and put all the load to the south transformer and work on the north one. So we are able to, if one transformer went down, we are able to run the whole town on one transformer. But when it's in the middle of summer, when it's very, very hot and everybody's using their air conditioners, we are borderline, yes. So one of the things that we need to do whenever we bring that third substation in is go ahead and get us a bigger substation transformer.
Thank you. Any questions? Any comments?
No comments from us. We would take questions from the
We'll
public.
open it up right now to the gallery. If anybody has any comments or any questions, they're welcome to come up to the microphone.
I think they're real dumb questions. Go ahead.
So keeping with your.
Identify yourself. We know who you are, but somebody out there does.
I'm sorry,
Identify yourself.
Kathleen Sloan Williamsburg. So keeping with your water analogy, so when I turn on the tap, I can control, the demand. Okay. So I don't understand why it's out of balance. What gets it out of balance if the demand? Why, does it send too much? Why would it send too much electricity somewhere if the demand is what, incites the transmission?
Yeah, thank you for that question. So the only thing that doesn't work with the water analogy to electric distribution is that in water, there's one line carrying electrical distribution system lines carrying the water. And the way electricity works, in that three-phase system, it works most optimally when they are balanced. There's some real complicated math and fun stuff that goes into that, but to put it in, to get to the point, it works the best it could possibly work when they're 100% balanced. And so when you're hooking that system up and you tap off of you can't take you can't take all three lines everywhere. That's not cost efficient. So when you're serving customers, they only need one phase. And so if you tap down a neighborhood, you're not going to take three phases down so that way you be able to balance it perfectly at such a micro level. You'll do it more at a macro level where you say, okay, down this road we're taking a C phase. And since we did 10 kVA transformers on this neighborhood on C phase, we want to make sure we do another 10 kVA transformers on B and another 10 kVA transformers on A, B, and C, all equal. And you would do that down each road, right? Like you would say, okay, we're going to take C phase down here, B phase down here. And it's not as simple as each road has 10 kVA transformers, right? But with the modeling software and the GIS software that we have, and being able to allocate the load, more precisely than just transformer KVA, you could get a better idea of the balancing. But transformer KVA could sometimes give you that tells you how much transformer at least is on it, and you could still balance it with the data that we have, but that's how it works. A little bit different than the water analogy.
What will give you the data you need?
For more precise data, there's actually the feeder relays, but there's actually a system you guys have implemented now that I forgot to mention that I just brought up with my colleague. So you guys do have smart metering system implemented right now. If we could get that system figured out to be able to pull that data and use it, we could do actually really, extremely precise data allocation based on actual usage, all the way down to the meter, where we wouldn't need the relays yet. And we're happy to help in that consultation to get that working. There is somebody in Bo's department that can work on it too. We just couldn't get it working in a timely manner to produce the study in the timeline that it was set for. But that is implemented, and that could give data before feeder relays are installed. So you guys actually do have some stuff implemented now that could give you that data.
And if I could add just to kind of simplify it, I think so. Feeder relays would be at the substation, and we wouldn't do that. That's a big project we would do, right? Mm-hmm. But balancing seems to me like it's a mechanical, so it's something that Bo and his crew could do by identifying where it's out of balance and shift, potentially by moving wire, by moving homes, by changing homes. So it's not a huge process. It just, again, in our maintenance plan, it would become a strategy that Bo and the team would put in place to say, we're going to go solve balancing in this particular area, right? And we could get that accomplished as almost a maintenance plan as well.
Yeah, and the balancing could actually be pretty as straightforward as moving a jumper. You have a jumper wire going from this wire to this wire, and you just need to move it to the next wire over. So like that, right. That would be with balancing. It could be as simple as that sometimes.
How much are we wasting?
Energy?
Yeah.
So power factor, to have power factor data readily available. You're So wasted energy is based on what this thing we call power factor. And the way power works is there's something called there's an imaginary component to power that's not useful power. It's called reactive power. And then there's a real component to power, which is usable power. Your power factor isn't in a bad enough range to say that you guys are wasting energy or because even if there's a lot of imaginary power, that's still power that you would have to buy from your transmission system. And I wouldn't say that the power factor is that far out of range where you're essentially wasting power. Because sometimes to correct power factor, there's these devices called capacitors, and they're sized to a certain size, and you don't want them switching on and off all the time. And so sometimes you have to forfeit them not being switched on because it could take the power factor. Think of the power factor trying to balance on a tip of a pencil. It could go either way. And it's really hard to keep it at the tip of the pencil, but it doesn't stay far from the tip right now. But it's almost impossible for a distribution system to be at the tip of the pencil. You could get a whole, smaller devices to operate that way, and more modern devices in our homes nowadays actually have built-in power factor correction, where power factors are just getting better and better down to the home level. It's mainly motor loads and stuff like that, but even motors nowadays are modern motors are coming on with better power factor correction built in. So to answer your question shortly, I wouldn't say you guys are wasting energy right now.
Okay, Mr. Zeski, do you want to come up?
Yeah.
Hi, Steve Zeski, 1019 Parkway. This is more of just an observation. Building in a little bit of redundancy while you're waiting to build the new substation in 2 or 3 years ain't a bad idea. I never went out plowing snow for 30 years without spare hydraulic cables, spare battery, and oddly enough, spare starter. Just saying.
Good point. Thank you. Any further comments from the public? Having none, I'll close this meeting. Now 7:18.
Now we're going to open just another hearing. I'm going to bring up our representative from the South Central Council of Governments, who's going to talk about our resiliency grant and how we're applying. And so will be a little public hearing to get feedback on this focused project at our substation. Gwen and Bo and Steve.
So just we're gonna have some brochures.
Oh, yeah. Good. We're good. We're good.
And then these are some flyers. I'm a visual person. So my name is Gwen Valentino. I'm with the South Central Council of Governments. You guys probably know my boss, J.R. Meepo. So I usually help Socorro County. But I have been working with Bo for about a year now, I guess. We've been really focused on this project. We have written a couple grants. This report that they did is going to help our grants immensely. Your last report you had was in 2015. We like to write grants with reports that are about no more than 5 years old. So this one is going to take us a while. The grant that Gary was talking about, the GRIP grant, which is in the trifold, closed yesterday. They were open since November and it was first come, first serve. And when they ran out of money, they ran them out of money yesterday at 4:44. So we missed that window. It'll open again next year. So we'll be ready for it. While I was sitting here in your other meeting, another electrical grid infrastructure grant opened up. So there's money out there. We can find it. You're aware that we're also applying for Colonias. It's a $12 million project. The council has approved a 10% match, which is wonderful. We're also going to look for that match in the New Mexico Match Fund as well. So hopefully you wouldn't have to come up with that. So we're constantly looking for money for you guys. When we talk about supply chain, I think that's your biggest concern about making this a priority. Supply chain, you're like 12 to 18 months out once you order the equipment. So that's going to be your scary window. And then once it's here, it won't take 6 months to install. So that's what we're working on. All of these grants these days require community involvement, community input. So we need to host these meetings more and more for any of your larger projects, because that's what the government wants to see, is that your community supports what you're going for. If they're going to give you $12 million, they want to make sure your community is on board. So that's what we're here for. So I'm short and sweet. Thank you. We did like a sign-in sheet and I made brochures. If you have any questions about this type of funding or any other funding, I'm absolutely a resource for you. I've been with South Central Council of Government since 2018. So I've written a bazillion federal grants. I just did my money the other day in Socorro. In the last 6 months, we've got about $5 million. In the last 2 years, we've been awarded about $25 million. So our award rate is pretty high. But federal grants are competitive and timing is always crucial. But with reports like this, you have to have an engineering report to get anything done that's big money.
All right, commissioners, any questions?
Awesome.
All right, Ben. We're a public meeting, right?
Where is it? That's it.
That's it.
Public can take public comments on the resiliency grant.
So with that, I'll open it up to the gallery. If anybody has any questions or comments. Having none, I'll close the public meeting.
You can open up your other meeting then.
Do we need any motions or anything?
No, there's no motions at all.
Just information only?
That was information only.
Okay.
Thank you all so much.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, folks.
Thank you.
We thank you all for allowing us to perform the study. We look forward to any further communicating.
Thank you so much.
Questions.
Appreciate it. All right.
All of you. Hi. It's for being so like you're not the.
We have, this is the night for public meetings. So we have one more. This is a public meeting for discussion and action for a hearing on the final adoption of ordinance number 771, amending chapter 3 of the municipal code of ordinances pertaining to animals. Go ahead.
Mayor Pro Tem, Chief is gone, or didn't make it with us. So again, we've, beginning in August of last year, we began developing a new ordinance for animal control. We've worked through that process for, I think, 5 months now. We've had multiple public hearings. We've put in multiple hours of staff time working with all of our partners. At the last meeting, 2 meetings ago, we had 2 significant public comments. One of the public comments was related to enforcement and how the codes were going to be enacted. So we went back to look at that. We brought that forward. And the second piece was how we would interact with livestock. From that meeting, we took the 2 actions where we put the preamble to be a little clearer on the intent of the law. That was as close as we could come. Again, at this point, the actions taken, if someone's cited in the public sector, those have to go to the magistrate court until we find a different adjudication model within the city, which we hear you, we'll continue to work on that. And then ultimately, we stayed with the state law on livestock, which would require it to fall, and that the city would have, and that if your livestock is running at large in the city, you potentially could be cited for that. We did keep the word intent in that, so intentional. So those are the two changes. Other than that, the code is exactly the way it's been developed and in place. So this would be your final time to have public comment, and if the commission so chose to take action to adopt this plan. Our staff agrees and recommends adoption.
Okay, thank you. Right, so we all know the journey, right? We've had about 3 public meetings at least. We've discussed it at length. I know we've got hundreds of staff hours involved in the rewrite of this ordinance. I think this it was a pretty comprehensive project all the way through, and I'm pleased with the way it went through. But with that being said, this is a public comment period, and I'll open up public comment. Patrick, thank you so much for waiting, and my apologies for having you wait so long, but you can understand the reason that we did everything the way we did it. So thank you so much for your patience.
And I'm going to truncate my comments today.
Yes, sir.
I need a nap. And by the way, you're an outsider. I'm making this comment from Andromeda, sir.
Okay. Thank you.
You know, the only issue that I have with the animal control ordinance is the general penalty section. I don't think you can execute this until you have a mechanism to take fines. Raton is a city that is the size basically of this town. It's on I-25. Both towns are the county seat. It's located near a large natural wilderness. The only key difference is, quite frankly, the income level. They make about 35,000 aggregate more there a year than is made here. When you look at the penalty section there, they have penalty sections divided into 2 sections. Common ordinance penalties, severe offenses. The first time a misdemeanor even comes into play is animal cruelty. Now, this isn't taking into account that you have a violation, you don't pay your bill, you know, then I think it's all fair and game. But to charge people misdemeanors right out of the gate, first offense, and we know this is done at least 8 times since the new animal control officer has taken over. We have done records research. We will continue to do records research. This isn't fair. It is not fair, and it's questionably illegal. There's nothing more American than violating an ordinance, getting a ticket, and paying your fine. We have to have records now. I have a record. I have a misdemeanor because of a permit. A permit. Not, I didn't hit anybody, I didn't threaten them, I didn't destroy property. My wife got charged with a misdemeanor for having the dog in our parking lot. 2 dogs. She got charged with a misdemeanor. This is not fair. I mean, a lot of talk about community and everybody coming together and this, that, and the other thing. This, to me, from our position and the perspective that we have and where we come from, this was a stick that took a big whack at us. This wasn't fair. This wasn't, you know, the item that I mentioned before that y'all had in the newspaper, the things that you said that discretion needs to be involved. There was no discretion. The kid waited outside, parked in the Pacific Grill parking lot, just waiting for us, waiting for trouble. After I came by to find out about the meeting 2 days ago, I go to the ATM, I come back around, the kids right outside our parking lot, scoping the place. I'm asking for fairness. I'm not asking for, you know, $15 million or, you know, a whole bunch of other stuff. I'm just asking for fairness. Give it 60 days. Hold this off, work on a way to at least temporarily bake in fairness into this. Put in the fines. Take away the misdemeanor for the first and second offenses. That's what I think you need to do. Thanks for your time.
All right. Thank you for your comment. Any other comments?
I kind of have a comment to that, is
Yeah.
that we don't set those, the judge does at court. We don't set those fines and fees or anything, the court does. So.
Can I say something?
Yeah.
Come back up to the podium though.
Court enforces fines, ma'am. The court doesn't make fines. The fines are, whether it's legislature or council, the fines are set by you guys, not by them. The court just uses that as guidance to apply that to the individual that breaks the, that violates the code.
So, since we're in open dialogue here, what is your suggestion to those, is my question.
My suggestion is that instead of using Las Cruces and Albuquerque as your baseline, let's use places like Raton and Farmington and these smaller villages. Use that as the baseline. Here, you can have my notes.
You could submit them to the clerk and then give them for all of us to have.
It just caused an enormous amount of problems for us. It came at a time, you didn't know about the timing of it and whatnot. It's very emotional for us. And so it's the standard everywhere else you go. We had an issue in Springfield, Illinois with I'm gonna cry here. I had a pug. I love this dog, but he got away from us one day. Took us a couple hours to find it. Animal Patrol found it, brought it back to us, charged us $50. That's what should happen. When we were getting the ticket, not only did we have to provide our social security number, but we were threatened with going to Denman 8 times. Got to the point that it started counting. This is not my suggestion. Calm it down a bit. We don't need a SWAT team. Okay? I'm willing to play by the rules, but I got to tell you, when the people enforcing the rules, I don't know, man. I mean, so many people yell and say things and put people down, slander, whatnot. All I know is that we spent thousands of dollars creating a container for our dogs to live in that spot that we bought up there. And we're trying to rapidly improve it. And this feels like harassment. This isn't normal. Municipalities don't charge misdemeanors for the first or second offense on whether you left garbage outside or your dog got away from you or some other, civil offense, minor civil offense. Misdemeanors are meant for criminals. If I steal your stereo, you got every right to be charging me with a crime. You don't have a right to charge me for a crime if my dog gets out of the gate. Now, if my dog keeps getting out of the gate and he keeps crapping in your yard, then that's something different. It says it right on the offense, first offense, on both of them, one that was directed at me and the one that was directed at her. Maybe I should have brought $150 million back down for that. I don't know. I'm just saying that it's not fair. And if you're looking for fairness, you're looking for not hearing comments about 2 different towns and 2 different enforcement policies. This is what you got to take care of. You got to have the mechanism in place for people to come do business at City Hall. You don't have the mechanism in place to do business at City Hall, but yet you're upping the penalties for civil behavior that requires that mechanism to be in place. You're putting the cart before the horse. That's my argument.
So I have a question for you.
Sure.
See if I can articulate it in the proper way. So you're telling us that the officer exercised discretion, or he did not exercise discretion. If you would have had a different officer that handled the situation differently, there may have been a different outcome, right? So
Hypothetically, sure.
different officers had different ways of interacting with the public. Some are more experienced, some are less experienced, some are more by the book, some are less by the book. And, it was always my philosophy. I wanted to stop the action first.
Mhm.
And if I had a reasonable person I talked with, then we could come to a consensus of stop the action and it was done. And a lot of times you didn't write a citation.
Sure.
A lot of times you just talk to people.
Absolutely.
Some officers, maybe they're straight out of the academy, maybe they're taught a certain way,
Mhm.
they're by the book. And
Sure.
we just, and for lack of a better term, the poison pens.
Mhm.
Because they would write a ticket for everything all the time, they do it all day long. That's the difference sometimes in discretions for officers. I'm not making excuses for the officer. I wasn't there.
I understand that, and I have a response to that, and because I think you hit directly on the key issue here. Culture. If you have a culture where people walk out and say, I don't like this guy, or this guy's from Chicago, or this guy has done this, and he's not really cool. He said this about, with all due respect, I've spoken here a couple of times. Every time after I've spoken, my garbage stops getting picked up. I'm not making that up. I have no reason to make that up. Actually, to be honest with you, I should keep my mouth shut. That's how I feel about it. But you know what? It got too far. It's gone too far.
But don't you agree there would be some circumstances where a citation is warranted?
Absolutely.
Upfront the first time around because of the nature of the circumstance itself. I'm not saying, I'm not familiar with your particular circumstance, but there are some things like leaving a dog inside of a car when it's 90 degrees outside. That's not an option for me. That's a ticket.
Yeah,
right.
I agree.
And so I don't want to take that discretion away from the officer. The officer, I don't know, should have discretion in that at that time. He should write that citation.
But here's the thing. And again, it goes right back to the culture thing and right back to the training thing and right back to the problem that you're going to have going forward, because I very much doubt that 25-year veterans are showing up and saying, hey, can I fill out an application? You're going to get young people doing this all the time, which makes culture and how we tell these folks to deal with the public that much more critical, because that culture piece, how we deal with each other, okay, is representative, quite frankly, of you.
Sure.
So when they come out and they say, hey, we don't like people from Chicago. And I've had a truth or consequences police officer look me dead in the eye and say, I hate people from Chicago. I've had a truth or consequences police officer wait for me. We've had 2 break-ins. We don't call. And the reason why we don't call is the first time that I called them, they ran my ID. This is not a culture that I'm guilty before I'm innocent. And that's how I feel this culture is. I feel that the punishment is more important than understanding the context of the situation. And that was what I was not afforded. I wasn't afforded an opportunity to have somebody of your stature. I'm assuming by why you're talking, you're an ex-police officer.
Yes.
Okay. So somebody of your stature who may have had some experience, I didn't get that opportunity. And so now my name for the rest of my life has a misdemeanor over a golf cart that I've already had to explain to my employers.
Is it misdemeanor over an animal or a golf cart?
Well, there's 2. I was charged with a golf cart permit violation that fits into the scope of the same thing, because when you look at how things are handed out, there's no place to go pay a fine for a permit violation or a dog violation or not having a tag for any violation of the city ordinance there's no place to pay a fine. There's no minor incident. All of these incidents are crimes. I turn my place into a junkyard. You decide you don't like it, you send the guy over, he writes me a ticket, that's a crime.
Okay, we do have a 5-minute rule here, so we better stop. So here's my last minute.
Okay.
My last idea. I'm thinking what you're describing to me right now is a training situation more than it is an ordinance situation, because I don't want to necessarily take the authority and the power away from our officers to use discretion in the field. It's up to the individual officer. But there should be a training situation involved where there's a certain way you interact with the public. And you should take all those it's called totality of the circumstances, right? You take all those things into your mind, you make a decision, and hopefully it's a good decision. It's not a retaliatory one, it's not an attitude one, it's a decision based upon the totality of the circumstances. And that's a training situation to me.
Okay. And I guess we're going to agree to disagree, because when it comes to training situations, scope and context are the most important. I've trained hundreds of people.
Sure.
And the most important thing in training and trying to educate somebody to take it to the next level, okay, is that the way I teach it, I call it a sandbox. And everything's got to stay inside that sandbox, okay? But that to me is not the issue. The issue is that if you go to Raton or Springfield, Illinois, or North Canton, Ohio, or Cleveland,
I got it.
There's a reasonable expectation of normalcy when it comes to dealing with ordinance violations. And that normalcy starts with a fine.
Yeah, and we've made that point already. So
okay,
we heard you, and I feel your pain. I understand what you're saying, and I appreciate the feeling that you have toward that. I know it's very personal. Okay, I understand that. So those are my comments. I have empathy for you, but we have to look at the totality of everything. I think we'll make a decision based upon that. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Mayor, let me come to a couple of points on it. So first of all, I would agree 100% with Mr. Oliver, and we've had good dialogue on this. I think that totally we do have a problem, being able to deal with things themselves, right? Through decisions of previous commissions, we've ended up in the magistrate court. That's just a statement of fact. I would go look at Raton, but I would imagine that Raton still maintains their municipal court system, in which they would then have the ability to do and adjudicate those items different. So, again, we could go look at that and double check that, right? But right now we are subject to, if we write a ticket, if we write an ordinance, if we write somebody for weeds, any of those things, and you've heard me say that throughout, it's hurting us because I can't get those to adjudication. If I write you a ticket for any of these, it's probably 6 months. And I've said out loud, I'm not upset at the judge. Judge Lee is one judge. He's one person. He has a lot of items. And it does seem that from the city side that when he gets a case on us, he is generally dismissing those cases and allowing those to go without citing, without that misdemeanor or those items becoming permanent. But you have to go through that process. And I get that. That's a tough situation to be going through versus coming in and paying a 20. So that point is right. In this law, that's the way we've written it, is that we have to go to the magistrate court. We have no choice in that. And we've been over that. We debated that in length. Based on Mr. Oliver's comments, we did go back and add the line into the ordinance to give it intent, right? Which is to say, it is to further the intent of the commission to promote responsible pet ownership and to encourage education and voluntary compliance with the provisions of the chapter and ensure that law enforcement is applying it in a fair, efficient, and humane manner. So that leans into, we can do the best we can to lean in and make sure that our enforcement officers are, when they're in the fields, applying, because they are not adjudicating, right? They're citing based on what they see.
It's a report to the court.
That's a report to the court, right? The last piece I want to say, and I want to be as defensive as I can of our law enforcement, right? We do have a young department. I get it, right? We have some young people we're recruiting. We have a good chief. We have a chief that cares. We meet regularly. We talk about these things intently. We talk about them from an administrative standpoint. So my ask would be that we continue that dialogue and that we look for building the right culture here where they are following the guidance that you've laid out. But I feel like that's the best that we can do because we are tied to magistrate. Now, that doesn't mean that I'm not looking for what's our next step, which is to return some way for us to have a fine, right? Because I do think it's important that we cite somebody $25 and $25 and we get to finally where they have to move up the ladder, because I think we would end up dealing with weeds and unclean yards and these little odd things. So as it relates to that point, I feel like we have examined it to the best of our ability, but we are tied to a situation that a commission put us in, if you will, by taking the municipal court out of our control. And until we come back to that, the opportunity that Mr. Oliver is asking for doesn't exist. So those are our comments from administration. And I think that our police department and the opportunity, our chief we have a good chief right now.
We do. Have you discussed this particular case with your chief?
We have. We went and looked through the record. We've tried to figure that out. I think he's brought that up with his staff and would agree that they would hope to handle those situations better. And I have to take him at his word and give him the opportunity to do so.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Oliver. Okay, any further discussion?
I see here on page 41, any person who violates any of the provisions of this chapter shall be deemed guilty of a misdemeanor and may be punished by a minimum fine of $25, but not exceeding 200. And the chapters, the section, the article, or is it everything underneath it in section 3?
It's that provision. I'm trying to get back. I apologize. I had that up.
But then also we have later down in the list, repeat offenses on page 60, repeat offenses, 3 or more violations of anyone or any combination of offenses in this article shall constitute an act of cruelty. The repeat offender shall be deemed guilty of a misdemeanor punishable by a minimum fine of $100, exceeding 500.
There was a general provision of Mayor Pro Tem, a general provision under animal cruelty that came with a stiffer penalty. That was the focus for dog fighting, for breeding dogs, any of those things where the cruelty rose to a level. So there was a different potential penalty, but the general penalties are as you described on page 41, page 17 of the document. And again, Tyler's interpretation, Tyler's vision, our vision was that ultimately it's the judge's responsibility, and we didn't tie the judge to say you shall penalize this. It's the judge's discretion would be to go anywhere from $25 up to $200, 90 days, because that's part of the state law. That's the way the state law is written. And then Tyler added to those, a person may also have animal can be required to take animal training, care, school classes, and all at the discretion of the court. So we ultimately recognize that the fact that we're tied to the magistrate court, we didn't want to give the judge, tell them the way we wanted to do it, because they have independence. And so this would be the limits under general penalties, unless it was animal cruelty, and then it would rise to a different level.
The public meeting. It's now 7:49. And this is an action item.
This is an action item. You can, the commission's choice would be to move to adopt, move to table, ask us to continue doing research, any of those items you wish.
I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to move forward with final adoption of ordinance 771.
So second it.
I have a motion in the second.
Honorable Dustin Mitchell. Aye. Honorable Amanda Forsberg.
Aye.
Honorable Ingo Hopner.
Aye.
Honorable Charles Glenn.
Aye.
Honorable Ralph West.
Aye, motion carries. All right. Item F1, consent calendar, purchase reports, items between 20 and 59,000.
The rest of this will go on next month.
Good evening, Mayor. This is just the report that, is between the 20,000 and 59,000 that the manager approved, and this was for based on the emergency grant funds for the freezer walk-in from the SJOA. It was approved during the bar documentation process, and it's just reporting that this purchase was made.
Okay. All right, that's the only item on our consent calendar. We're very familiar with this item. We've seen it many times, so I'll entertain any issues. Okay, and
No, I second.
and I have a second, Ms. Torres.
Honorable
Aye. Aye.
Motion carried unanimously. Item G1. Discussion and action resolution number 41, 25-26, budget adjustment. You got again, Ms. McGee.
This is for the funding that the animal shelter received, and it's to increase their budget. It was broken down by the expenses from the line items, with the total amount of the revenue is 5,000. And it was on the previous meeting for approval, and it was not signed already.
Okay. I think we're familiar with this item too, so I'll entertain a motion.
I will make a motion to approve, resolution number 41-25-26 by VAR as presented.
This make a motion in a second, Ms. Torres.
Honorable Ralph Hessler.
Aye.
Honorable Inga Hopman.
Aye.
Honorable Charles Glenn.
Aye.
Honorable Destiny Mitchell.
Aye.
Honorable Amanda Forster.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Moving on to new business. Everybody good to go?
And I, that's correct.
Okay.
Can we keep going?
Can we keep going while you go?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Keep going.
Let's go to item H2, discussion action change order. Shovel ready water project. Assistant City Manager Alvarez.
Thank you, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, Commissioners. This is a request to change order the PO with J&H Services. They're our contractor out on site right now for the shovel ready project. What we're requesting is to put in an allowance for some additional funds in their testing due to soil changes, and additional allowance into installation of InstaValves to help maintain pressures around the school area and minimize, well, school area and anywhere else they're putting stuff in, and minimize disruptions. The additional costs do fall within the allowable project grant funds, and they would be based on a time and materials. The request is for $115,000 for an increase. That is without tax. And so it is a total of $124,631 with tax.
The majority of the funding is for the valves, right? If I read that right?
It is,
Yeah.
Mayor Pro Tem, yes, the majority is for the valves, 65,000 for the
Right.
valves. And if the project continues on its current trajectory, we hopefully don't need those valves, but this is an emergency measure that we recognized after we started, that we wanted to have the ability to add a valve where we needed to shut off and control flow, so.
Okay. All right. Have any questions, anybody?
Seems like it's gotta go.
Make a motion to approve the change order for the shovel ready water project as presented.
I'll second that.
What's on the second? Norris.
Honorable Destiny Mitchell.
Aye.
Honorable Amanda Forster.
Aye.
Honorable Charles Glenn. Honorable Ralph Hessler.
Carries.
4-1.
Mayor Pro Tem, just to, again, you'll see this now in Jocelyn's to approve the requisition to do so. We'll continue to do that process. And we'll continue to follow our procurement process, which would allow me to make change orders that are less than 60. If it exceeds the 60, it's coming to you for your approval. So anything below keeps us nimble, keeps us moving. But then you'll receive all the documents, everything very consistent within that process.
Yes. Move up to item H1, discussion action approval of purchase requisitions over 60,000. Item A.
Thank you. This is, for the Cantrell Dam. Excuse me, it's funded through the Water Trust Board. It's basically utilizing our on-call with Wilson, and they will be working with the city to get $1,484.76. And I will defer to questions.
Mayor Pro Tem Commission, the scope of services for this is going to be full bidding administration services as well as full construction administration services for approximately 16 months out there in the field while they do the construction. They'll also have full-time field observation all the way through our substantial completion. They'll do part-time observation at the senior level. That was something learning very much from Manager Whitehead on negotiating proposals and finding cost savings where we can. They'll also, of course, have the quality assurance and independent assurance testing in accordance with DOT requirements and assist with all project closeout and record and as-built documentation. This is for the full construction of the Cantrell Dam.
So we're not paying for on-site oversight all the time. You've been able to negotiate that because they're not going to be there every single day.
We
right?
will have a lower level on site all the time during the every time the contractor's there. What we won't have is the higher senior levels there at the same time. They'll just be there for the quality assurance testing, the main testing requirements that have to be certified.
And our match requirements only 76.
Now, this is this is for the engineering oversight. This is for Cantrell Dam where it was the 8.9 million. I don't have my paper in front of me, but we received Water Trust Board funding for right around the $8-9 million.
Right.
This portion is just for the engineering.
Right, but out of the 876, that it says that our match is 76,000.
Yes. That requirement is 76,000. On page 94.
What page?
94.
94 in our packet, not yours.
If it says
It's up,
that,
it's up there.
okay. See.
See what you're saying. So when we do the purchase order, yes, when we do the purchase order, we have match line item and grant line item. And so when I make a payment and submit for reimbursement, we submit on a 10% of the invoice goes towards our match.
Okay.
Until we meet the full match.
Okay.
So Mayor Pro Tem, Commissioner Forrester, we have a $9 million project. I'm rounding, everybody, I'm a rounder.
We got you.
With $9 million, we have a $900,000 match. We owe 10%. The flood commission, the Office of the Flood Commission is giving us 400. We have to find our remaining amount. So, but of that, this contract will pay out in full, but we'll take 10% of it, right, to meet our match from our match side of the house and the rest from the grant is what this purchase order is telling you.
It's late.
Yeah, it's late. And I won't go into it much, but again, we will have an on-site inspector 8 hours a day, 5 days a week for the project. Again, across the board, this is a pretty sophisticated project, but we did negotiate down several hours from senior staff and then not having 2 inspectors on site multiple times. And then we've increased our ability for reporting, for consultation on this particular project. So, but we did see some savings in this particular negotiation in the city.
Perfect. And so it's overall savings or is it more stuff in the ground?
Well, I think it'll be more stuff in the ground. We saved about $50,000 in engineering side, which ultimately goes right back into the project.
Okay, perfect. Good news.
My computer says it's time to go home.
Mine's getting close. I
You
just
got a
got
couple
covered.
more.
Mine says
Okay, so that was item H1A. I'll have a motion on H1A first.
I'll make a motion to approve the Wilson and Company Cantrell Dam Engineering, Construction, and Admin Services. I was like,
Okay, motion to second, Ms. Torres.
Honorable Member Forster.
Aye.
Honorable Ingo Hopner.
Aye.
Honorable Charles Glenn.
Aye.
Honorable Rob Hushler.
Aye.
Honorable Dustin.
Aye.
Carried unanimously. Go to item H1B, J&H Services Incorporated.
Do you want us to recap what we spoke about?
Mayor Pro Tem.
no.
This is the item that we just briefed you on for the change order. So this would be just approving the requisition for the amount of the change order.
Need to hear it twice. I just want-
Approve the J&H services for the change order of the shovel ready.
And I will second that.
Torres.
Honorable Dustin Mitchell. Honorable Rob Hushler. Honorable Charles Glenn. Honorable Ingo Hopner. Honorable Member Forster. I'm sorry, I mispronounced your name. It's Robert. Oh my goodness.
Let's move on to item H3. Discussion and action approval of biennial memorandum of understanding between Main Street and the City of Truth-the-Constable. Whitehead.
Mayor Pro Tem, members of the commission, on an every 2-year basis, an MOU with Main Street needs to be put in place. This would start July 1st, 2026 through 2028. Key points, I've read through the document. It's consistent with what the city has adopted before. Main Street has 4 points that they are to deliver to you: economic vitality, design, promotion, and organizational structure. They are to hire an executive director. In the contract, the MOU defines what the requirements are under attachment 1. The liability that the city does have is you must commit to funding the program at some level, that they have a set budget. They are required to raise money to get to that budget. And again, we meet those obligations by funding them. As long as they're promoting ideas within the district that they're assigned to, they would meet and be eligible to receive city funds. Again, the document's been reviewed. It's in order. I think we're building a consistent relationship with Main Street. We're looking for other connections that help them be more than just focusing on their items. It's, so we would recommend adoption of this MOU.
Okay, we have any discussion?
I think, we've kind of put some provisions on Main Street a few years back, and I think they've really stepped up.
I'm pleased with their actions over the last couple of years.
And we know what's going on.
And they're a strong organization, and they do report all the time.
Yeah, all the time.
So it's perfect.
Even in public comment, which doesn't get on the agenda. Okay, I'll make a motion to approve the MOU between Main Street and.
I second.
Honorable Ingo Hopner.
Aye.
Honorable Todd Klein.
Aye.
Honorable Ross Hessler. Honorable Dustin. Aye. Honorable Amanda Ford.
Aye. I'm just sitting here.
Okay, our last item. H4, discussion action, approval of the professional services agreement between the city and Jesse Cole 4x4 Services and Consults.
Second.
They reviewed it already.
Know me, I lost my paper. I can do it on the fly. Mayor Pro Tem, members of the commission. Again, when we came on last year, in order to operate a water and a wastewater system, you must have a level 3 in each discipline within your system to be compliant with the environment department. Currently, right now, we have Jamie Foreman, who is a level 2. She's completed her classes and training. She will be a level 3 in water, which will then complete what we set out for her. But in order to be compliant, we made the decision to go out to a consultant. I think this is a model that will be working with other organizations. It's very hard to find this. So in this particular case, our contract will be a multi-year contract. Again, we'll do a part from now till the end of the fiscal year will be one purchase order, and then we'll be allowed to do this for the next year as well. We're paying Mr. Cole $1,000 a month. That $1,000 a month is to allow us to have the use of his license. That's it, right? For that, he provides us 1 day of guidance. He comes in and looks. So he'll have 1 day in the system where he'll go through every piece of our infrastructure. He reports to me and reports to the water department on the quality. If he's comfortable with allowing his license to continue to be on top of us. So that's what that gets us. Then off of that, we pay him $75 an hour for emergency callouts. He is very knowledgeable in the system. And so when we have a valve or we can't find a location, he's very capable. If we have a technical issue with repairs, he's able to come out. So he would be compensated additionally for that. And then what we found this year is he's also licensed to do water line and repairs. So this contract would allow me then to use him within the context of a $60,000 professional services contract to do repairs, minor repairs to our system. Jesse is the one, he and his crew facilitated 15 repairs for us in December, actually kind of got us caught up on the small repairs. So this gives us licensure. It gives us safety, gives me control, and it allows us to have somebody to assist us in repairs. And our recommendation is that we adopt and continue the contract.
Just as a comment, when we had a full-time operator on board, it cost us almost $90,000.
That's correct.
So this is cost savings. We're getting the same thing. We have a pretty good system. I think the city has benefited by his expertise, and it's been a good contract.
And let me just add to that, because somebody might say, why is the guy working for just $1,000? Well, he has, I think, 10 or 11 other contracts that he's able to provide the same service to. So he's built a business off of serving other small municipalities and water systems. So
Makes $1,000 a day.
pretty good. But if the environment department shows up and we don't have it,
Any further concerns? Comment?
All right, I'll make a motion to approve, the professional service agreement with the city and Jesse Cole for his 4x4 services.
Motion to have a second.
I'll second that.
Yeah, motion and a second. Ms. Torres.
Honorable Ralph Hessler.
Aye.
Honorable Destiny Mitchell.
Aye.
Honorable Amanda Forster. Honorable Ingo Hopner.
Aye.
Honorable Chaz Glenn.
Having exhausted the agenda, this meeting is adjourned.
Exhausted every.